to you. Happy Easter. Today is Friday. Christians from all walks of life are remembering the death of Jesus Christ and what he did for the mankind. And others would actually say, I can't die for you because Jesus already died for you. And this is a day that we remember the Son of Man and the sacrifice that he made towards the people. And we as Christians that follow him really hold this day with a very, very special recognition. And I just want to say happy Easter to all of you. Indeed, we are here. Today is Friday. However, even if it's a holiday, it is business for breakfast, and we are talking matters to do with business, the economy, and how best we can revive our country into the right trajectory. However, we start the morning post. We start the breakfast show as usual with the morning post. There you have it. That is the morning boost. We always start with that to help flex our muscles. So like I mentioned, we are doing everything that we do on the show, regardless of it being a holiday. Patrick, so happy Easter to you.
Yeah, happy Easter, and I want to know, what does Easter mean to you?
It means everything.
Like what?
Everything.
What is everything?
The answers that what's that one was given. Was it Douglas Yakalima in Parliament?
Yes. Yeah, he was.
And do you intend on putting electricity at this school?
Yes. This is down.
He was done.
You know, one word answers.
Questions, obvious answers. So yes, Patrick, it means everything to me as a Christian. It's a very important and significant date in the calendar of Christianity and my life as well. So me and my house, we will cherish this day.
Interesting. We are doing a business for breakfast, but you can also give us your Easter message. We cannot ignore this important holiday in the Christian calendar. So you can give us how you are celebrating this Easter, how you are reflecting on the death of Jesus Christ, the resurrection. Today is Good Friday, for a matter of fact. So it's quite a long weekend, and I know I used to enjoy this weekend, especially when I was at school. Friday, Shifodi. But when I started working, it doesn't even seem as like a holiday,
It seems like a holiday.
Yeah.
So yeah, for us, I'm Catholic. Today being Good Friday, we will not eat meat. It's I don't know why you're looking at me like that. The way I love
Okay,
you,
continue.
but trust me, we are not supposed to eat meat today, Good Friday. So yeah, and we'll have to do a bit of it. You can decide either full-time fasting or partial. I don't know why you're looking at me like.
And then I'll concentrate on my camera.
This is the other side of me.
Interesting.
Take advantage and hear me speak out.
To the church where you went some decades ago.
No, you lie.
No way.
All right, let's go straight into the health coda.
Hi, good morning and welcome to the Health Corner here on the Breakfast Show. I am Dr. Nakuyana Mfaya. So this week we have been talking about a condition that is very common and easily transmissible to other people, and we've been talking about tuberculosis. So we talked about what is tuberculosis, and we say tuberculosis is an infection that affects the lungs, and it's usually caused by a bacteria called Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So the primary place it affects is the lungs, and there are other parts of the organ of the body, other organs of the body that can be affected as well, from the brain to the skin. So whether it's the brain, the back, or the spine, whether it's the kidneys, the liver, they can all be affected by this infection. And so depending on which part of the body is affected, there's a different time period of treatment that TB medications can be given. We also talked about the signs and symptoms. We say that TB can present with certain signs and symptoms, and usually these are classic symptoms because it's usually people who have this condition that would present like that. So they would have a cough which has been there for about 2 weeks or more than that. They would also have a fever, they would have night sweats as well, and chest pain. So they might also have weight loss and fatigue, and depending on which other part of the body is affected, for example, if it's the brain, they might have confusion, they might have headaches, they might have seizures or a coma, and if it's the back or the spine, they might have back pain. If it's the kidneys that are affected, they might have urinary problems like difficulties urinating or pain when urinating, or even abdominal pain because of the kidneys where they're located. So they might also have cutaneous lesions where there are some lesions on the skin if the skin is affected, and also other organs as well. If it's the eyes that are affected, they might have lesions in the eyes. So TB can be diagnosed in the hospital and treated, and it needs to be diagnosed in the hospital based on the culture. So you need to be able to do a culture to be able to grow the bacteria in the hospital or in the lab. And when that culture is done, they need to confirm that somebody has TB. However, there are other tests that can be done to be able to show that someone has TB, such as the gene expert, a chest x-ray, and a urine TB lab. So people who have these symptoms would need to be subjected to these tests, and if the chest x-ray shows that you have TB, you might be started on TB medications. If your gene expert is positive, you might be started on TB medications. If your urine TB lab is positive, you may or may not be started on TB medications, because TB lab might not be very specific, and so it might not be very reliable. But these others, like a chest x-ray, a gene expert, might show really that somebody has TB. So how is it that you can prevent yourself from having TB, or what can you do to prevent yourself from getting this infection? So number one is that you need to protect yourself. If you're staying with somebody who has TB, make sure you protect yourself and try to limit the amount of time that you spend with the people or the person who has TB. Try to isolate these people, or even better still, you can take them to the hospital where they can be isolated at least for even 2 months during the period when the infection is very active. Then after that, they can be sent home or discharged, and they can be treated at home, because after 2 months at least, the person has become less infective, and so you can be able to stay with them. But still, you still need to protect yourself. Limit the amount of time that you spend with this person, and if you can be able to wear a mask when you're coming in contact with somebody who has TB, then it's better that you do that. Then also avoid overcrowded places that are too crowded. You might not know who has TB, and it's easy for you to get the TB transmission, because it's transmitted through aerosols. So as soon as somebody coughs out these aerosols that have this infection or the bacteria, and you inhale these bacteria, you can be able to get the infection. So avoid overcrowded places. Then also, if you are a smoker, we say that smoking is a risk factor, so avoid smoking. If you take alcohol, or if you abuse drugs, especially IV drugs, make sure you refrain or try to stop taking these drugs, or taking alcohol and smoking, because it's a risk factor for getting tuberculosis. The other thing, for people who have immunosuppression, like people who have HIV, who have diabetes, try to protect yourself and try to wear a mask if you are in overcrowded places, and avoid coming in contact with people who have tuberculosis. If you are a healthcare worker, try to limit the amount of time that you spend with people who have TB. So these are some of the ways that you can be able to prevent tuberculosis. And also, if you have a child who is still young, try to take them for BCG vaccine, especially babies who have just been born. Make sure that you get them vaccinated for BCG to prevent them from getting TB. And if you have a 5-year-old and you have somebody who has TB in the house, make sure you limit the amount of time that this baby comes in contact with the person who has TB, because the babies who are 5 years and below are at a higher risk of getting this infection. So these are ways that you can protect yourself from getting TB, and we need to be able to protect ourselves, and also we need to limit the transmission of TB, so that more people, so that not many people can have this infection, and not many people can be able to transmit it. And we want to be able to live without TB in the future. So I do hope you have learned something this week, and make sure that you catch up on my YouTube channel. If you have missed anything, you can watch on my YouTube channel, which is Dr. Nakubianam via Siameka. Or you can, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me on Facebook, which is Dr. Nakubianam via Siameka. And I'll see you again next week. I do hope that you will stay healthy, Take care of yourself, take care of your loved ones, and stay blessed.
There you have it. That is the Health Corner. Dr. Mfaya there, and she always brings us information that is useful to our well-being and making sure that we lead healthier lives. Remember, we always say that you can suggest some of the topics that you want her to tackle for you so that you can understand exactly what you may be experiencing. Probably you have a backache, you have a constant headache, which others may call a migraine. You need to find out exactly what is causing that, and those are some of the things that Dr. Mfaya talks about on the Health Corner. Let's look at how the kwacha is faring as of yesterday, of course, because it's a holiday. So the money markets that we are basing on as of Thursday, which was a business day. We will carry on with these money markets rates up until until next week, Tuesday. Yes. Now let's look at how business was closed. So the Great British Pound was buying at 24 kwacha 170 way and selling at 24 kwacha 65 in way. The United States dollars was at 19 kwacha 46 in way and selling at 19 kwacha 85 in way. The euro was at 21 kwacha 21 way and selling at 21 kwacha 62 in way. The South African rand was at 1 kwacha 07 way and selling at 1 kwacha 09 way. Those are your money markets as of the close of business yesterday, Thursday, the 60th of April 2023. And like I mentioned earlier, we are basing these stats from the close of business yesterday.
Exactly, yeah. So the kwacha is within that range as well, 19. And we just hope that it continues on that trajectory.
Patrick, it doesn't have to.
Sad enough for those who were keeping. Sad enough for those who were keeping their few dollars, and they were only shocked with the dramatic change of the kwacha.
You know?
Yeah.
My goodness. And then to think that it's a holiday throughout. Jeez.
Yeah, so that's that's about the kwacha. It has appreciated a little, but which many stakeholders feel it is a temporal appreciation, considering the factors that led to that, and that's activities which Zambia was preview to host last week, pertaining to especially the Democracy Summit. That's among attributing factors. So now the overall, we are also going to have the Minister of Finance today addressing issues pertaining to the IMF, and we are looking forward to see what's the way forward and what measures are they putting in place, or where are we at the moment in terms of the debt restructuring and understanding various economic fundamentals in terms of the disbursement of resources towards development by the Ministry of Finance. So we are going to be monitoring that press conference, and we'll get you posted, our dear viewers.
Indeed, Patrick, as of yesterday, the Jesuit Center for Theological Reflection attributed Zambia's constant high cost of living to delays in debt restructuring process, which will help the Minister of Finance, Dr. Stumeko Nsokotwane, will talk about this morning. In a statement to Camnet News issued by Just City Area Social and Economic Development Programs Manager Muchimba Siamachoka, she attributed the basic needs nutrition basket for the month of March 2023, which decreased to 9,000 compared to 9,278, which shows about 200 kwacha difference recorded in February 2023. Ms. Siakachoka explains that the downward movement in the basket has been as a result of lower prices in food items such as kapenta, bananas, beef, among other items. Meanwhile, the city has therefore stressed the need for debt restructuring, adding that it is critical in stabilizing the economic fundamentals which are crucial for economic growth and poverty alleviation. Since we are talking business this morning, let's look at this story, and when we return, we'll bring in our guest this morning, who is an economist and hopefully he will help us discuss a number of issues regarding our economic fundamentals.
The cost of living fell during the month of March. The JCTR remains concerned about the country's debt restructuring delays. JCTR notes that the stagnation in the debt restructuring process is contributing to the high cost of living, which has since surpassed the 9,000 kwacha mark in the year 2023 for Lusaka province. This is considerably higher than the average monthly income in the nation, which stands at 4,215 kwacha, according to the 2021 labor force survey conducted by the Zambia Statistics Agency. From a cost of living perspective, a weaker currency implies greater importation costs for an import-dependent country like Zambia, with this brunt of the burden being passed on to consumers in the form of higher food and fuel and other essential commodities. In addition, a weakening exchange rate, as evidenced by the recent performance of the kwacha, has the potential to lower investor confidence, but can also compromise the fiscal space at the expense of critical social sector spending. To that end, the JCTR recommends the following measures. Government must expedite engagements with all creditors, especially China, to deal with any impediments that may be delaying the process.
All right, in global business news monitored on the BBC, the global economy is set to grow at roughly 3% over the next 5 years, the slowest pace since 1990, the head of the International Monetary Fund has said. Kristalina Georgieva said the path ahead was rough and foggy and warned that cooperation to address the problems was becoming more difficult. She spoke in Washington ahead of IMF's annual meeting. In her remarks, she called for more help for low-income countries like Zambia. The organization is bracing for a wave of requests for help or debt restructuring as shocks from COVID-19 crisis and war in Ukraine and soaring cost of living continue to reverberate. And in other global business news, Samsung Electronics will cut memory chip production after announcing a 96% drop in its quarterly operation profit. The world's largest chip producer said sales had dropped sharply due to a slow global economy and less demand after the pandemic. Samsung said preliminary numbers showed operating profits fell 600 billion won, which is equivalent to 455 million United States dollars, or equivalent to 366 million pounds in January to March, from 14 trillion won the previous year. The firm's shares jumped more than 4% on the news it would slow shipping making. These are some of the business stories on the international front monitored on the BBC.
Now let's just zoom in this story also, where 16 houses in Kawaya compound of Kasupe ward in Chilanga district have been disconnected from electricity by Zambia's power utility ZESCO after it was discovered that their connections were illegal. Let's look at the story. We'll be back.
Illegal electricity connections have been going on for years in Zambia and posing a danger to lives, as most of them have been done in a haphazard manner by unscrupulous people who have been trying to cut costs by avoiding getting a connection through Zambia's power utility ZESCO. This has, however, been posing a danger to the lives of house owners, children, and unsuspecting members of the public due to potential electrocution.
Kena ukenze kumene kuja kukabuthi pakati pakati pezeni ntambo so kamene kaja ka fridge nje kana ndo katapa kwanja kwa left pa ntambo pachi so kana chabe cha dumu kati pa limene kana gwera ku payphone kumbuyo kucha kamzake yakatizimula chabe kataba.
ZESCO has expressed concern at the growing number of illegal connections and meter bypasses, resulting in the power utility extending amnesty to those guilty of this vice to report themselves to the power utility from 1st April to 30th April 2023 and avoid prosecution. The power utility Thursday morning undertook a community sensitization exercise in Kawaya compound of Kasupe community in Chilanga district on the dangers of illegal connections. The compound, which has a coverage of about 100 people, has had 16 houses disconnected so far due to illegal connections.
You've seen the illegalities. ZESCO has realized that some people just got caught up. They were duped, they were given wrong information. So that is why now ZESCO has given us the amnesty, which starts from 1st April to 30th April. During the amnesty, instead of us grabbing you and arresting you for your illegalities, we will allow you to come in, declare yourself, we'll get your details, we will correct the illegality, we will not arrest you, because during the period of the amnesty, we're just trying to get people to correct what has been done wrong.
The meter is actually fictitious. The people who are connecting them want them to believe that they are connected by ZESCO. So they bring you a meter that does not operate and they put it there. You don't pay anything. You don't pay anything to ZESCO.
This, we didn't know that they are connected, but they are connected, they've been connected. And we cannot account for electricity. And as such, installations have brought in a lot of low voltages to customers that are correctly installed. So now, such installations like this are very dangerous. It looks like this is almost falling, but it's new.
After the amnesty period, the power utility is expected to go flat out on investigations, and those found guilty could face a jail sentence of up to 5 years. Zipporah Mshala, Camnet News, Chilanga District.
There you have it. That was an interesting story there in Kasupe, where a power utility firm, ZESCO, was disconnecting some houses for illegal connections. Now, in studio, we've been joined by our guest of the day, and he calls himself the street economist, and he is Indeni board chairperson, Watson Lumba. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much, Patrick.
Tell us why you call yourself street economist. This is a new term.
It's a new term.
Yes.
I think you've heard of a street lawyer.
Not so bad. You know, when something is associated to the streets, it's not exactly pleasant, but it seems you're very excited to call yourself a street economist. So we want to understand why.
I think he's trying to explain economic jargon so that a street person can understand.
Okay.
I love that.
Interesting. So, first of all, we are hosting you for the first time.
Yeah.
Who is this street economist for our viewers?
Under 2 minutes or less.
Come again?
Under 2 minutes or less.
2 minutes?
Yes.
I'm just watching.
Just professionally, on the professional aspect.
Professional aspect.
Yes.
I've studied accountancy and economics. And I run my own small firm called Sewa Associates Chartered Accountants and Consultants. Professionally, yeah. Family-wise, married with one daughter. And Christian-wise, I got to Lusaka Baptist, born again. I'm proud to say that. And this day is very important to me. Yeah, and yeah.
We cannot start without also getting your Easter message to the people. We are Christians.
I think for me, Easter, I've just been meditating on 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 18, where it says, Christ suffered. I got two things there. Christ suffered for our sins, and he died in the flesh, and he rose again. He rose by the Spirit. And those three things are my meditation for Easter. And I've just been meditating this morning that without Christ, the sovereign God is angry with us. But we approach him through the Lord Jesus Christ. All that anger of God was poured on Christ so that we can have access to him. And without Christ, we cannot approach God, because he is angry with our sins. And for me, that's my meditation for Easter, and it's bringing joy that now through Christ and what he has done, I can approach God.
Amen. Indeed, in case you are just joining us, we are talking business because this is the Business for Breakfast. Our guest this morning is street economist and Indian board chairperson, Mr. Watson Lumba, and hopefully we will discuss a number of issues like I mentioned in our preamble. This morning we are talking democracy and economic development. How feasible is it for us to attain economic development in a democratic country like Zambia or a developing democracy like Zambia? Patrick?
What is the connection between democracy and development?
I think if we have to start this topic, we have to define what we're talking about. When we say democracy, what do we mean?
Yeah.
When we talk about development, what do we mean? And then we say, how do the two mixed and how do they move on? Yeah. I think democracy is a well-known terminology. I think I can remember in my grade 3 or 4 civics, is it civics or whatever we were learning then, one could say democracy is the rule of people, by the people for themselves, and for the people themselves. So it's more like coming out as we as a people. If we are 3, 4 of us in this studio, the 4 of us are ruling. And then we decide and say, well, look, it's not all of us who can do this. Yeah. So we decide and make one representative of the 4 of us, or maybe 2 of us, and we tell them what to do for us. That's democracy. So we are participating in governing ourselves through that. If our representative is not doing what we feel is conducive or excited or bringing value to us, we'll remove him and maybe put another person who will represent us. That's how democracy works. When it comes to development, I think we mistake development by making it as if it's a stop thing. It's a definite thing. It ends there. Look, development is a process. And development are these activities and procedures we make up to improve our lives. Now, if I steal money from you and go and make up a road, that's not development. Yes, you'll be excited by the road, but that's not development. The end does not justify the means. Now, say in that process, what would you call development if the end is the road? It's where we agree and we find the right means and say, do we need this road? We sit and agree and make active. What is it going to do for us? And then what is the end of this road? Now we participate in that and we come up with activities where we all agree and say this is what we want as a people. Remember, and this therein, there's a connection between democracy and development. Remember, democracy is a governance of people.
Yes.
For the people, by the people. Now, the same people who we say they are participating in governance, you cannot deny them to participate in the activities which promote our well-being. So I say development is not a definite end, but it's a continuous process where activities of bettering the lives of that community are being carried on. But we mistake that, like I said, to say, if this is seen, that is development. Yes, in a sense it's development, but it's just part of the process. It's not the end in itself.
But my next question would be, if development is a process, what is the long-term vision for this country? Or what does it aspire to achieve, let's say, in the next 30 years? Because we have seen that, based on your explanation, we have seen countries like China, they would say, want to become a tech giant. But what is the traction for Zambia? What should we represent as a Zambia when we are facilitating development? And how is the linkage of development to the formulation of development plans? Let's say the 7th development, we are now talking about the 8th National Development Plan. And we also see political parties have different manifestos that do not conform to the current to the 80th NDP or development plans, even the 2030 agenda, they do not conform to that. But how can we make sure that we live to that expectation as development being a process?
I think that's a packed question, and it involves a lot of things. First, we need to say, why are we doing not? You know, in this country, the mistake we made, I remember that time I was at the University of Zambia in 1991. Yes, I participated in what we called the Viva and whatever.
Don't look at me like that. I was born by then.
Okay, I'm not taking it through that. But the point is, you see, democracy is also a process where we are participating in governance, and they are what we call institution of governance. And just recently, I think it's last week or the other week, there was a democracy summit in Zambia. But I just read, I read it in the newspaper, that the president said we need to strengthen the institution of governance, democracy. And for me, what I believe is in agreement with that statement is there are institutions of governance in the democracy. Now, what we did in 1991 was to, we are coming from the one-party state of affairs, participatory democracy or whatever it was called, and the institutions of governance were made around that one-party state.
Exactly.
When we got what we did in 91, we just did a small aspect of democracy, of voting and allowing other parties. That's all. That's all we did. We didn't develop democratic institutions to safeguard democracy. All we did was to say, okay, now anyone can form up a party. If there are 4 of us here, we all can have, maybe 2 of us have one party, or maybe each one of us will have a party. Now it was allowed. Previously it wasn't allowed. Yeah, that's part of democracy, where people are free to associate to whatever party. But the institution of governance didn't change. Even up to today, they are all institutions of governance and are under the one-party participatory democracy, which was there. So what do I mean? They all answer to one person, who's that? The president. If you look at the, say, one of the common institutions of governance is anti-corruption. Another one we can talk about, the police. We can talk about all other things, even in economic institutions. They are all under one person. Those have not changed, and that's why, answering your question, why are we not doing or following what we Vision 2020, why are we pulling this one, doing that? Because, yes, we are free into voting and forming our own parties, but the governance institutions are still under the one-party kind of affair. So we can't get excited under this. So that's why we see the president, when he comes into power, he removes everyone. He puts on his own people. And he can do whatever he wants. And then the rest of us will just change. I remember there was one president, I don't know if a minister was called by the anti-corruption, and the president said, you don't call my ministers like that. You have to get permission from me for you, the anti-corruption, to call a minister to come and answer. The judges are chosen by the president. And then they go to parliament. Because the president has numbers, the judges will go through.
And it's still the same thing
today.
It's
still the same thing today. So who's going to define that? If you look in the United States as an example, the Attorney General is voted by the people. Here, the Attorney General is appointed by the government, Solicitor General by the government, Auditor General is the President. All these strong people who can safeguard our institution are appointed by one person. And because that one person chooses the cabinet, and the people who are in parliament, there are many, and they have to pay allegiance to him, when it goes to parliament, they are ratified. So it's all a setup of a one-party state, not blaming anyone. So everyone who comes from President Kaunda to date, the institutions are the same as he left them. And then we arrive at this point now. We want to say, when it comes to development now, it's also driven. The activities of our well-being are driven by those few individuals who are in that state.
Exactly.
Yep. So we find ourselves hovering into that kind of sense. So we make very little progression into development, the activities which are designed for our well-being. It's not us.
What state do you think we should move? Because you've mentioned all this, and it's like each successful government comes in, takes over. Is there political will, apart from pronouncements that the president made, to ensure that these institutions of governance are enhanced?
Yeah, because we see the president has a lot of good pronouncements. So this far, but are these institutions following through to ensure that these policy pronouncements are actualized, based on your observation?
Well, look, because of the way, I can say something here, but I also have people who have to carry those institutions.
Exactly.
Because you don't expect the president as one individual is the one who is at RDA, is the one who is at FRA, is the one who is all these places. It makes good intention, but as to how those people are aligned to the president's vision is also another question. So, and again, it comes to the same point: is there's supposed to be connection between development and democracy, but those are anchored on the institution of governance, and those institutions of governance start developing policies to initiate activities which promote development. And so we come to a point where we say we are mixing up things now. And one of the things which is very important in what we are talking about is we now have a centralized government. Just a few days ago, I read in the newspaper, which I liked, and I thought this government is trying to develop, is where it was said, I just read in the newspaper, that vehicle licenses will be done at a council level. Remember when it's time for road tax paying, we all rush to queue up at Ratsa, and the people in certain areas, there's no such things. Now, if we have 116 or 113 districts, which means we have 116 authorities, local at people level. Now those are going to be the ones handling that. That's a good development initiative. And then the other thing we have seen is this bringing a lot of CDF, a lot of money at a constituency level, and where people now will participate into adjudicating over the usage of that money. That's a good process, a part of development, I would say. Because you see, now what happens is, like, for instance, for us who are in Lusaka, we have 7 constituencies. And if, for example, each constituency gets 30 million kwacha, so us in Lusaka Central, at least we have access to that money. We have a say in at least 30 million. That's an excellent move. But I heard one opposition leader making fun of it, that this government doesn't know what they are doing. How can they tell the MPs to be doing the road, the MPs to be deciding over a police post, where the police post will be the same CDF to do it? Now, to me, that's what democracy, and that's development, where we who voted those people have a say in the money we are going to use. And if we say the UPND hasn't done much, for me, on that one, I give them 9 out of 10.
Wow, that's a little too much.
Yeah, 9 out of 10.
What justification do you have for you?
It's because a big chunk of money is coming to the people.
Is it working for the intended purpose?
Forget about that, because now it's us to make it work. Now, it's one thing to make, if we are 4 of us, I'm the one who's keeping the pace. I'm the one who's making decision for the 5 of us in the studio. But when I bring, if I have 10,000 kwacha and I bring 6,000 kwacha, let's make a decision of how we use that money. That's good for you. You have a say, no, let's buy this. No, let's buy. So we debate here amongst ourselves. We come up and agree. And like me, because I'm the one with the pace, I'm the one who decide whether we like or not what I've bought it. I come here in the studio and buy this, I buy that, I buy that. Then you complain and say, no, this is not what we want. He could have asked us. Now, if we are a democracy and we participate in the so-called governance, we should therefore participate in the wealth creation. And the CDF bringing this chunk of money there, it means we are going to participate in the wealth creation of our community, unlike people dictating to us. I did some work in my life where I did what they call an international financial institution. Put some boreholes in one of the, if I say the province, people will know the owners who did that because I'm still doing some work with them. No, I'm not mentioning it. But they did some boreholes in this province. Now, at the point of my engagement, it was we did what they call the look back. 7 years after they did those boreholes. So they gave us a consultancy with a colleague. What we found was they did a lot of boreholes in that province. The locals were not using it. So in our look back consultancy, so we find a borehole which is not used. It's rusted. You try to get the water is coming out, but the locals don't use it. They just say, oh, there's a boy, the
fact that you're speaking Bembe, you're giving us a clue where that thing was.
No. I'm speaking Bembe because that's what they said. But it's not from northern. At least that's why they speak Bemba. I grew up on the copper belt, so I know some Bemba. But I'm not Bemba. But the point is, the locals were not involved. So maybe they put, suppose whether, or the kind of what, if they were consulted, where can we put the borehole? And then I was part of another consultancy with the same institution where they were doing boreholes in another province. Now, you see, the problem with that province was, this was a rural program. Now, the tradition of that rural setup where we were doing that work was when a person dies in the village, they have to move. And now imagine you go and put a borehole there, and there's a death a month after that, they will move. Who's going to use that borehole? And you have spent 50,000 kwacha. If you consult the people, then they will tell you, don't give us a borehole here. As when there is a death, if somebody dies, even a child dies, we move. Who's going to be using that one? So what you want to do to help us with our well-being, maybe give us something like this, which we can move with as we move, decamp from this village. Now, those two examples give you an impression that development has to engage those who get involved in the governance, who promote that governance.
Development is said to be a bit slow. Zambia has been a democracy for a very long time, since we're talking about democracy and development. Could it be that we are not enough consultative as a people so that people can fully participate beyond an election? Because I know they understand their role, they understand the power they possess. After elections, they don't understand that. Could it be that we are not consultative enough as a people to ensure that development is brought down? Of course, you talk about the Constituency Development Fund. This is 2 years down the line of the UPND administration giving us, the people, such a huge amount of money. But the first year was described as chaotic by a lot of people. Second year, we're yet to see how it's going to be done.
And we still have people in communities who are not even aware that there are these programs under CDA. What is the
point of us having a huge sum of money that you cannot even access, you cannot even see, you cannot even use? How consultative are these processes, and why are we developing at a very slow pace than expected?
I think first we have to say everything has a start and there are teething problems. If you ask my mother, my late mom, she will tell you that I wasn't born called a street economist. So it was a process, but they couldn't give up on me at that point, because I knew I have to grow. I need to become, until I reach to the level where I can appear on into such a nice studio, being called a street economist. It was a process. You don't give up. And as we go, I think the other problem we have, we are too much in a hurry. Remember, we have had
the president once said we're in a hurry to develop.
Yes.
We are just following the footsteps.
Yes. You see, now we need to. We have been in this state in a dwarfed position where we are not, involved. So we don't even know. Now we have started, and even the people who are designing the CDF thing, they are revising them. We'll definitely see a difference in this year. We'll definitely see another difference in the next year. I can see your facial expression that it will not open. And that's the problem with the Zambians. Because we are so negative. No. We're so negative. But look, somebody has started something. Yeah. The Chinese say 1,000 miles start with the first step. Yes. I make the first step. Oh, well, look, no, we want it yesterday. But as you get to know the challenges, you keep on refining. I said here, development is an activity. It's not saying boom, it happens. It's an activity, which even the Americans is still developing. They want to do their roads, but they have been UK where we would. I don't know. The UK have never been under any other colony. Maybe they were with the Romans. And when I was a student there, I learned something. Any town which is ended with star, Manchester, Leicester, Colchester, those towns had some Roman headquarters. So they were colonized, but they have been maybe over 500 on their own. They're still developing. What more us? We were colonized. We became a one-party dictatorship. We think we did develop when we came into the multi-party dispensation. With that came liberalization, which is a good, but it was also a little bit chaotic, but it was a good thing. It brought about private enterprises, where we can unlike depending on just the government. Those days they were what we called Zimco, Findeco, all these companies were under the command of the government. But now there's entrepreneurship. In those days we could not sit in such a nice studio because it was all under government command. But when you open up, people have got these brains. They have initiatives, they make up this survival. And every time we go through that, how do we survive? And if you ask yourself, how do I survive? And then you are constrained, you'll not survive. You'll not make some initiative. But when you have some bit of space, and that reminds me, in the last regime, the operation space was very small. You needed to belong to the ruling party. And so you find that people could not come. You have to belong to the PF. Otherwise, you will not have access to certain economic activities. I remember a friend of mine telling me in 28 or 20, the nephew, 38-year doctor, coming from a certain part of the country, in national interest, was dismissed from UTH in national interest. 38-year doctor. And yet we needed a doctor. And then we said, because they say they don't come from wherever they don't belong, they come from this party, national interest. What does a 38-year-old got to do with national interest or threatening the national interest? And now when you create space, you are creative, you are giving people freedom, even to use their initiative to come up with certain things which can develop them.
Now, I also want to bring you now to something that you are doing at the moment. So before we look at other economic matters, that's being a part of Indeni. Indeni is a strategic institution, first of all, and it has been subject to political statements, especially from the government critics who have been of the view that they are embarking on the second phase of privatization. Indeni is one of the companies to go. And now we heard that no, actually the Indeni is being worked on. Now, you as the board chairperson for this important strategic institution, tell us, what is the status of Indeni at the moment?
I think the status of Indeni, first, we need to know where is it coming from. As you know, Indeni was a refinery. Not really refining crude, but it was a separator. What do I mean by separator? Because you see, to get crude, raw crude, we don't have that capacity in this country. I think in Africa, there just maybe Nigeria now, Libya, they've got a refinery. I don't know if Egypt has. I think Algeria has. There are very few countries in Africa. You'll be surprised that Canada, what I know about Canada, they have got crude, but they have no refinery. So Canada gets the crude and send it to America, and then they get finished products. So I'm just trying to make a point that Indeni has never been a refinery of crude. Indeni has always been a separator. Now, to say a separator is like it will get commingled, a finished jet fuel, diesel, petrol, kerosene, and all that, and the heavy fuels. They are combined and pushed into the Tazama pipeline. They get to Indeni, and Indeni separates those things into their original form. Now we got tanks for petrol, tanks for diesel. Now that was how Indeni was working. Now, to get that commingled stuff is not cheap, expensive to get the commingled stuff. But you say, why did we go that route? I think it's as an historical perspective, which would help in those days of fighting independence and liberation wars. Now, that is very expensive. So you are basically getting something which normally a lot of people are not getting. So it makes it expensive. And you are getting it from middlemen who are also putting up a markup. That's how we have lived. And for your own interest, even Total and Engine in South Africa, they have decommissioned their refinery like that because it's expensive. It's cheaper to bring in finished products. So what this government has done, which is from the economic point of view and financial point of view, is a good move, is to decommission it. So what is happening at Indeni is where we have gone into an OMC of a government. It's not being privatized. Indeni is not being privatized. It still remains a government enterprise, a state-owned enterprise under Industrial Development Corporation, IDC, to get involved into certain progressive and profitable activities. So where we are now, it's not called Indeni Petroleum Refinery. We have actually even changed the name. It's called Indeni Energy. So with that, what is happening at Indeni is the workers were declared redundant and government paid them off. And it was a huge cost to the government. And but I think the workers, they are happy. They went home with some good money. Those who have got good initiatives, they have invested their money well. Where we are at Indeni is we are now coming up with a new model of business, which will be, we are going to be like any other OMC, like Total, Mount Meru. The only thing we are not going to do at the moment is retail, so we will be more like an wholesale. At the moment, the government gave us also to bring in about 30 million liters of diesel and 15 million liters of petrol. just like they give, as part of the market, the petroleum market in Zambia is dictated by the government. Then these OMCs they have to know what are the quantities we can consume. And then those who can bid, there are even other small companies who just bring in and sell to other retail outlets. So we are now into that mode of business. But as today, we are refining the last crude or the last commingled stuff, which at the point of closure was in the pipeline. So we are working out that now. We started 2 weeks ago, and we hope in the next 2 to 3 weeks that commingled stuff will be completed. And remember, already it was pushed into the Tazama pipeline. All that commingled stuff is within the Indeni tanks. So that's how the Minister of Energy went to commission the pipeline, the Tazama pipeline, to be bringing in finished diesel. So the pipeline now, the Tazama pipeline, has been configured by the Zambian engineers to bring in finished diesel. So it's no longer going to be bringing in that commingled stuff. So with that, it means everyone who brings in diesel, if they want to make some bit of money, they have to use that pipeline. It's a government of Zambia and government of Tanzania who owns that pipeline. It's not Indeni who owns that pipeline. So even Indeni will be subjected to apply to Tazama to use that pipeline. When we're at the point of bringing in diesel, we'll be bringing it through the pipeline. Because we don't own it, we'll be applying for space from Tazama. If we go and bring it through tanks, it means we will make a loss because it's expensive. So with that, which is a good move again, we are going to see the price of diesel in the coming days coming down. I can't say by what percentage or what. I don't know the market price of diesel at the point we'll be doing that. It's again be moved by the market forces. But one thing which is true is we are going to eliminate the part of bringing it in by tankers. Mm-hmm. So that would be a huge saving, which we can say the way ERB is doing the pricing of every month. Mm-hmm. It will be helping because we will know the cost, they will know the cost at a particular time. And I have to say this, one of the things we miss to understand, because we don't produce diesel in this country or petroleum products, so we have no control over the price. So the price keeps fluctuating. Mm-hmm. And then there are two things which affect the price of petroleum products. It's the price on the petroleum market and the exchange rate. So immediately the dollar, the kwacha depreciates more. We just know that at the next round of price changes, it will be up.
But while you are still there on the issue of pricing, there is an argument because other developed countries or other countries, what they do is that they have invested in fuel reserves. And we also have some reserve facilities that we're developing. Others are already working at the moment. But why don't we store enough fuel, buy at a time when the prices are affordable, and we can consume that fuel for a period of 6 months, but we are doing a 100-month arrangement, and how can we stabilize the price with such kind of a model?
I think the simple answer to that is the capacity of those diesel and our usage. I'll give you an example. Mm-hmm. If our capacity is say 100 million liters, I'm just giving an example, mm-hmm. and then we consume 90 million liters, then our capacity is for 10. So 10 can't take us long. Now, part of what we're doing, remember the government, yes, they have improved, but there is one big depot which is yet to be commissioned, mm-hmm. and this is the Kasupe depot, which I think should be coming in with maybe close to 100 million capacity. Now that hasn't been commissioned. I don't know where we are with the developer, and that is a government facility. the Ministry of Energy. At the end, when they finish, whether they will give it to us, most likely they will give it to Indeni to manage it. And then we have small depots in, recently, towards the end of last year, was commissioned in Chipata. And the simple answer to your question, we don't have the capacity to store enough for what we need per month.
Shouldn't that be part of the discussion as to why we are finding this solution? Because fuel runs the economy.
Yes. So, but we need to develop that, and we don't have the money.
So what is the solution to that? You can't keep saying we don't
No, part of the Indeni strategy is for us to develop tankerage. We have land, but we don't have money. But within our strategic, long-term strategy of Indeni, is Indeni to be more like a bit of a FRA in terms of fuel, where we're going to have reserves. So if we have, right now, the thinking of the board and management is, can we develop tanks to store at least 3 months of consumption with all other players and government helping? We store 3 months of petroleum, in particular petrol and diesel, for 3 months. Then it gives us room to say we can bring in products for 3 months, and then we can maybe have reviews every 3 months. But in the meantime, we don't have that capacity to store what we say. So in a way, you can say we are in a situation of hand to mouth, but not that bad. But we don't have the capacity to store enough for us to review quarterly, maybe 6 months, half a month, half a year, to store that.
Public-private partnership, I'm hoping I've mentioned that correctly, is something that has been highly pronounced by the UPND administration. Are you looking at that to bring in partners that can help you?
With Indeni?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. We have already engaged, it's a process to go to the there's an office for the public-private partnership under the Ministry of Energy. And one of the things we were mandated by the Minister of Energy is for us to engage them, and that's what we are doing. The management is, they have been already given how this will work within our case, and we are developing those thoughts.
How is this firm going to prioritize Zambians? Because, we host a lot of people on the breakfast show, and they feel this government is prioritizing foreign entities. And we are looking at, for instance, how are you going to work in collaboration with the Ministry of Youth Fuel Tanker Program? We have tankers under government through the Zambians who are the youths, for instance. How would you make sure complement that program succeeds, considering that you helping that project means helping Zambians as well?
But you see, if you see now, the petroleum sector is dominated by foreign companies. They're the big ones.
Exactly.
From traditionally, we have the Pumas and Total, Mount Meru, Rubis. They are all foreign companies. I think there should be just one, my memory, one OMC which is owned by Zambian. I think it's one. I think I can't mention it here. Maybe the owners may not be happy, but if I know there's only one, maybe the others. So now, you see, if those are the ones who are players, and because of where we are coming from, they may not believe in our efficiencies and effectiveness and the economies. Because you see, key in public finance, the key thing in public finance, there are three, what we call the 3 E's: efficiency, economy, effectiveness. And even private sector, when you start engaging somebody to do things for you, you have to look at their economy. Economy is just the price. Am I going to make, am I being charged a good price? And then you look at the efficiency and the effectiveness of doing what they're doing. And then we find we need to toe that line. We need to walk that line. How do we start that line? Is now giving people opportunities, and you make them grow, perfecting the art. Like I said, I wasn't born a street economist. I went through, if you wanted to know, after my grade 12, I went to the University of Zambia, then I did other things. It was a development until I ended up calling myself street economist after learning a few jargon of economics and say, why do people fail to define inflation in a layman's person? Yesterday, after one radio program, a lady came and asked me, oh, I want you to explain to me what is inflation. After we chatted through, then she said, I now understand inflation. That's why I call myself a street economist. So you see, one of the things we are afraid to take on is to believe in ourselves that we can do it. So we always think other people can do it. And so we give them opportunity at our expense. So if you start somewhere and say, give us 10 years, we are going to perfect the art. But you say, no, because this government is that, they are failing to do the art of the CDF coming to that. Let's give it a run. Let's perfect it. I know I did a consultance on the what do you call this? Devolving the central government to give authorities to the local government.
The devolution process.
Yeah.
Under the decentralization program.
That's the word I wanted, decentralization. There were a lot of consultants. That was during the time of the MMD. And I remember the minister at local government was the current minister of health, Honorable Sylvia Marcel. What I remember correctly, because the figure I worked out to say it will cost us so much to do a complete decentralization. And when the minister was addressing, I just said, hand it over with it. When the minister was addressing whether parliament or, and then she said it will cost us so much to decentralize, and she mentioned the figure I worked out. Now that process, the way it was, there were other people who were working out what it will do, the activities of decentralization, and then my job with my other colleague, we were two of us, was to cost those activities. Then there were a lot of things. What excites me now is to see those things being implemented in a small way. And decentralization is good because, like I gave an example, us who voted who have a say in the cake. It's not a few people and their relatives who have a say, or their friends.
Okay, Mr. We almost feel like we have quite a number of questions here. So I want to run through, and I'm hoping that you respond as quick as you can. The cost of living is said to be really high. Of course, yesterday the JCDR released a food basket. It decreased about 200 kwacha, but then they are saying the debt restructuring process is making the cost of living be as high as it is at the moment. What is the connection as a street economist?
In fact, what is the solution?
Yes,
also give us your solution as we wind up.
Make us understand.
Is this a solution or understand?
Everything.
The cost of, you see, why, first you say, what is the connection between the debt
restructuring and
the cost of living? I mean, I wouldn't say it's simple, but I would explain it in this way. You see, we borrowed too much. We borrowed too much, and we want that debt to be restructured.
And we're still borrowing.
First, let's look at that.
Yes, we borrowed.
Yes, look at what we borrowed. We borrowed too much. Now the reckoning time has come. Now, and they know when we borrowed, we didn't just borrow on the agreed terms, but even those agreed terms we defaulted. Now, I come to you, I owe you, and say, let's negotiate. I owe you, and I'm not even paying. I'm not honoring the agreement, and then I come to you and say, let's negotiate. First, you start honoring what we agreed. Then, if I see that you're doing very well, then maybe we'll sit and negotiate. Now, this government comes in, and that's what another unfair thing I see in this country. They didn't borrow. They find this huge mountain of debt, which debt we have even defaulted, and they say, let's negotiate. Now, to start negotiating, you have to go back to the agreement and start honoring those agreements. Now, to start honoring the agreements, part of it is to say we need to start paying, clearing not the debt but the arrears on the agreements. I owe you rentals and I'm still in your house, and then I say, let's negotiate. You tell me, first be current.
Pay your date.
First be current. When you clear this, then we say, let's negotiate. Maybe I'll reduce. Or maybe if you are paying me monthly, I'll tell you, start paying me in 3 months. Start paying something. Then we can negotiate. Now, that paying something, it means, and we are paying in dollars. What does it do? We are getting dollars out of the economy to pay. What does that mean? The dollar goes up. And we are an import country. We import more than we export. Now, that in itself is a shake in the way things are being run. And when we come to what the Minister of Finance calls the resource envelope is small. Why is the resource envelope is small? Because now part of the money is going to pay the debt. For us to come to a point now where we can say, let's talk on the table and restructure and help you. So we can't sit back and say, oh, debt restructuring, debt restructuring. We have to start honoring. So we borrowed so carelessly that we didn't invest. We invested in the political dispensation, political activities which don't produce.
What's the solution to this?
First, we need to look at the problem. The solution,
we acknowledge?
You see, we don't have money. First, we have also two challenges there. Are we able to export? Our production capacity is very low. One of the things which has affected we all know here, the 5 of us in this studio, we know that our major earning of Forex is copper. And then we have 2 big mines not working. Again, we messed up, Mopani and KCM. They can't work now. Fairly, if we are being fair, we can't blame it on this government, where from nowhere you put a going concern company, a big company like KCM, in a provisional liquidation. I mean, it defies logic. It defies economic logic, financial logic.
But this government, again, has been dilly-dallying to wind up discussions on KCM because they are resolving this matter outside the court. But they are still dragging because people are concerned on the copper belt, like their livelihoods are being affected.
You know, it takes 2. Fortunately, last week I had lunch with somebody who is close to people who are negotiating there. It's to and fro. We need to agree. One of the things, I'm not part of that, I can't say that, I may be misleading people. But you see, all I can say, there is counter offers, this you say this, that you say that. Because this government is saying their interest is say, we need to get KCM to start running. We need KCM to start exporting. We need to get KCM to start giving supply jobs to the locals. And we need to, the KCM also has issues. You need to negotiate in this outside court because they have a strong case, even by layman standards. I can't just come into your car. They own the company. Forget about the price they paid, but we sold it to them. They are the majority shareholders, and we go in there and say we're putting because we know. They've got the right.
I'm still going back. A minute, your solution to the high cost of living, you haven't mentioned. You've talked about us acknowledging the issue here, which we have. Of course, we do acknowledge.
As a state economist.
Are we going to continue saying, because we are in the situation, let's just hold it?
No.
Go on.
No. The simple
solutions.
The solution, 2 solutions, very good. Number 1, we need to negotiate. The going out of money. We need to stop that leakage of money going out. So huge money. And this is what this government is working on, from what I know, as a street economy. 2, we need to increase production. Do you have a small something?
Yes.
You have, very good. How many of us have small somethings here? I have some small something. Tomorrow or even today tomorrow I'll be going to my small something.
All right, thank you so much for choosing.
We'll start something, don't worry.
This conversation with Mr. Numba, our street economist. He has quite a lot of things to offload, and time has not been on our side. Join us again next week. Thank you so much for watching. Good morning.